Welcome to Crime Over Wine Weekly. It's Monday, May 6th. I'm Heather Holley, and here are your crime headlines. Nobody will face charges after the bodies of 4 babies were found. District Attorney just announced the decision to not file charges this week. One reason is the medical examiner can't determine how the infants died or if they were even born alive. Another is the mother, a now 69-year-old woman who lived in that apartment, is now in a healthcare facility. When investigators spoke to her, she appeared confused and didn't understand who she was talking to or where she was. Brian Kohberger's next 2 court hearings will not be open to the public. The judge overseeing the case made the ruling last week. Kohberger is charged with murdering 4 University of Idaho students in 2022. The hearings, scheduled for May 14th and 16th, are set to discuss potentially moving the trial to a different county. At this point, a trial date has not been set. A New York TikToker faces charges after investigators say she illegally sold weight loss drugs to her followers, some of which experienced, quote, significant life-threatening injuries. Isis Navarro Reyes posted videos marketing drugs that appeared to be popular weight loss drugs like Ozempic, but prosecutors say some of those drugs were contaminated with bacteria and none of them are approved for sale in the U.S. Reyes is also not licensed to give out prescriptions. Reyes was caught after selling meds to an undercover agent. She faces several charges, including smuggling and dispensing of misbranded drugs. And coming up on Crime Over Wine Weekly, new developments in the bizarre carjacking and murder case in Florida, plus chilling video of a New Jersey father forcing his 6-year-old son to run on a treadmill days before the child ended up dead. But first, let's get to the 2 good things about this podcast. Michelle and our wine. Hey, Michelle, how's it going?
Hey, last week I think tried to kill me, but you want to know what? I persevered, made it out alive, and that's in the past, and now we're looking to the future.
Yeah, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger or more resentful or something like that. I don't know.
However the saying goes, but yes. So this week's wine is really exciting, and I have a confession. It was my week to pick it out, and because this week was so crazy, I completely forgot, and Heather swooped in like the majestical unicorn she is, and she saved the day. So I really appreciate you, and I really like this one that you picked out. So
I'm glad you like it. I also have a confession. Based off the bottle, I thought it was a white wine. Spoiler alert, it's not.
Did you notice that you were in the red wine section, though?
So, I went right after I worked. I worked a shift I don't normally work. Went to the liquor store. I didn't have any idea. Like, I normally kind of do research, have a theme or something I'm looking for. This week, in my mind, I picked a price point and a random aisle and grabbed the bottle that fit that description.
We've all been there. That's okay. But it's really good. So we're talking about Zin Collective Zinfandel. This is different from like a white Zinfandel that maybe you've heard of or you've had before. This is just a Zinfandel, which is ruby red in color. It's described as expressive, with a rich nose full of rhubarb, blackberry pie, and brambly red fruits. There are secondary notes of vanilla and spice box. It's medium-bodied with a mouthful of blackberry, ripe red currant, and black cherry, supple tannins, and perfect acidity buoy with a bright and lengthy finish, framed with a trace of tobacco and baker's chocolate. So, in a nutshell, there is a lot going on. This is a complex wine, but it smells amazing. It tastes amazing. I mean, Heather, you did good.
Thank you. A complex wine for complex girlies who had a complex week that almost gave us a complex and a mental breakdown. So cheers to
very
that.
much. Cheers to that. I really do taste a lot of the blackberry in it and like the red fruits. And every time I take a sip, I taste like there's like another flavor that peeks through. And I like it. I could almost like eat some like dark chocolate with this. I think that would pair pretty well.
I could see that. For me, it was giving more of like Maybe like a good steak salad. I don't feel like it's a summertime drink, and I don't feel like it's just sip on it by itself type of drink.
Hmm.
It needs something to go with it because it is that rich and complex.
I agree. It like needs something to kind of balance it out a little bit, but not something that's going to compete with it, if that makes sense, because there is so much going on. But it is good. And yeah, I do get the vibe of like on a chilly night and you're kind of inside and like wanting to warm up, you know.
Yeah. This wine is a strong independent girly. So her partner like doesn't need to try to overshadow her. They need to work with her. Think like Pink, like the singer.
That yeah,
Yeah.
that is so deep. And if that is not like the truest thing I've ever heard, I don't know what is. This is a complex wine. This is a complex episode. There is a lot going on in the crime world, so buckle up because we've got some pretty interesting cases to bring you this week. Coming up, an Indianapolis woman walked away from a treatment facility a year ago. Why police just now issued a missing persons alert. Plus, we discuss that shocking video in the treadmill abuse death trial, which is underway right now.
Crime Over Wine is sponsored by BetterHelp. As someone who's used therapy for years, I know that finding a therapist can sometimes be a stress on its own, juggling your full-time job, your family, your friends, your podcast, and trying to find the right therapist on top of that can almost feel impossible. That's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp matches you with a therapist that works for you on your terms. It's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to one of 33,000 licensed professional therapists in as little as a few days. And because finding a new therapist is a lot like finding a new bottle of wine, if you don't jive with your therapist, you can easily switch to a new one at no additional cost. You can get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp by going to betterhelp.com/crimeoverwine. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/crimeoverwine for 10% off your first month. Join over 4 million people who decided to get help and get happy with BetterHelp.
A trial is underway in New Jersey in the case of a father who police say forced his 6-year-old son to run on a treadmill because he believed the boy was, quote, too fat. The child died from injuries investigators believe was from chronic abuse. Jurors saw surveillance video this week from the fitness center at Christopher Greger's apartment complex showing the 6-year-old named Corey Mikakulo running on a treadmill as his father increases the speed from March 20th, 2021. In the video, the boy stumbles and falls multiple times as he tries to keep up. Greger can be seen grabbing Corey by the shirt, and at one point, prosecutors say he appears to bite the child's head. 2 weeks later, Greger said he brought his son to a hospital after the boy woke up from a nap, stumbling, slurring his words, and experiencing nausea and shortness of breath. Corey was taken for a CT scan where he began having seizures, and he later died. An autopsy found Corey had blunt force injuries with cardiac and liver contusions with acute inflammation and sepsis. However, the medical examiner did not rule on the manner of death and deemed it, quote, undetermined. A consulting forensic pathologist reviewed the case and determined Corey's death to be a homicide, saying he believes Corey suffered an acute traumatic injury to the heart 4 to 12 hours before his death. The defense hired a consulting forensic pathologist who determined Corey's death as natural, saying his death was caused by, quote, complications from pneumonia. Greger shared joint custody of Corey with his mother. According to reports, Greger was not present in Corey's life until he was 4. Corey's mother reported Greger for abuse over 100 times, but no one took action. She has since sued the New Jersey Division of Child Protection and Permanency for failing to protect Corey. Greger turned down a 30-year plea offer. If convicted, he faces life in prison. Heather, I'm not sure if you've come across the video of Corey running on the treadmill. It is very, very hard to watch. He's struggling so much to keep up with, just to run, to put one foot in front of the other. But then you see the speed of the treadmill get higher and higher, and as it go faster and faster, and he's falling and he's trying, and it's very, very hard to sit and watch that.
I haven't seen it, and I don't think I could watch it. Just hearing the details, like the mama bear in me is furious right now. I know that there are some people who have problems if their child is overweight and want them to lose weight. This goes beyond that. This was abuse. This was murder. Like, he was a small child and you pushed him beyond his physical capabilities, not to mention the mental damage that you were doing during this abuse. That if he had grown up, there was a lot of trauma anyway. You're supposed to love and nurture your child, and being that focused on their physical appearance is not doing that.
And seeing the video and pictures of him, he's not overweight or anything of the sense. Like, he looks like a normal 6-year-old little boy. And looking at the court records, that his mother, the fact that Gregor was only in Corey's life for 2 years, and she reported him over 100 times over a 2-year span, there has to be red flags somewhere. You know what I mean? That how did this fall through the cracks? And what I hope, after all of this, there is an investigation into kind of what happened here and why wasn't more done.
I do hope that happens, but I'm so tired of children dying because of quote unquote falling through the cracks. And I know that DCS is overloaded and underfunded and understaffed, but for a country that prioritizes the birth of children, we sure aren't prioritizing making sure that they're taken care of as they're growing up, to make sure that they have a life. We're failing children daily.
That's a really deep point that you make there, because I also think of what was it? It was on Netflix, the docuseries Justice for Gabriel. That was another very sad child abuse case where just the system failed.
I feel like we're hearing it a lot. Like, obviously I don't have that data in front of me. We don't come into the show with prepared rebuttals and stuff. This is a genuine reaction to me hearing this story for the first time from Michelle. But how many times are we going to have to cover a story that a child dies where abuse has been reported or people whispered about it in the shadows and nothing was done? Like, get it together. I don't want to hear anything about right to life when you're not protecting the life that's already here. They matter too. They matter just as much as the infant growing inside of a woman. So can we please do something to protect these children in America?
I do wonder, so it looks like there's 3 opinions on cause of death or manner of death here. So you have what the original medical examiner ruled, which was undetermined. And then you have what a forensic pathologist ruled, and this was from one hired by the state, that said homicide. And then the defense hired their own forensic pathologist. They said that it was natural from complications of pneumonia. So I wonder how both sides are going to argue that. And then also, so one of the things is it was found that Corey had sepsis, which sepsis takes a while to, that's not something that happens overnight. I think that's going to be a big part of this trial of, to prove to the jury, because in order to convict him on homicide charges, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that...
I would be interested in the 2 forensic pathologists because they have the same data and how they interpret it. I mean, if you're hired by the defense attorney to look at the results that you have in front of you, And if they were complications of pneumonia, but would these complications have happened if he wasn't being forced to run on the treadmill? Or was this overexertion that his body couldn't handle? Whether the dad knew he had sepsis or pneumonia or anything doesn't negate if that's how he died. Prior conditions are prior conditions. Like, it happens, unfortunately, with, like, you hear student athletes that might die during practice or on the field because they had an unknown medical condition. So I don't know if that's like they have the same information and just interpret it differently because of who was paying them.
That is something that is argued a lot in, these situations, because it's not uncommon for the defense to hire their own experts because it's their job to just get one juror to say, there's a little bit of doubt in there. And so that's essentially what they're doing.
Yeah, that's going to be a very complicated case. And I do feel like now that I've calmed down a little bit, I should rewind and be like, this man has not been convicted nor found guilty. As a parent, I find it very upsetting that he would do that to a child in the first place, no matter the outcome. In my opinion, that still constitutes as a form of abuse. He has not been found guilty. He still has a jury of his peers to decide. I personally, though, just don't love the treatment in general.
I do wonder how strong of a case would it be for the state if that treadmill video didn't exist. You would still have the reports from the mom of, abuse reports of over 100 times within a 2-year span. So there is that. I will say that video does pull at your emotions when you watch it. We'll have to see what else comes out. The trial will continue later today and into the week, and we'll keep you guys updated on what happens. A search is underway out of New Mexico for a 10-month-old baby after 2 women were found dead and another child badly injured in a park. It happened around 4:30 Friday afternoon. Someone called 911 saying they found 2 women dead at Ned Hook Park. When police got there, they found the 2 women dead from gunshot wounds and a 5-year-old girl with a head injury and a baby carrier empty with a bottle nearby. The women were identified as Samantha Cisneros and Taryn Allen, both 23. Both of the children belong to Cisneros. The 5-year-old child is in the hospital in critical condition. Police say the women had earlier gone to Walmart to sell some puppies, but it's unclear how they ended up at the park. Police say both of the women's purses and their car were found at the park, but they are still looking for that 10-month-old baby. If you have any information, call the Clovis Police Department at 559-324-2459.
An Indianapolis woman walked away from a treatment facility a year ago and hasn't been seen since. The Indy Star reports Candace Heron was last seen in April of 2023 at a mental health center. Her aunt filed a missing persons report a month later after several failed attempts to get in touch with Candace. Police posted a missing person alert this week asking for the community's help finding Candace. The Indy Star says there was no public notification until they requested information on the case. Candace is described as a black woman with brown hair and brown eyes. She's 31 years old and 5'5". Anyone with information can call the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department at 317-327-6160. And after the break, it's all hands on deck in the investigation of the carjacking and murder of a Florida woman. How many agencies are now involved and why it's a federal case.
Crime Over Wine is proud to support Emancipet. Unlike episodes of Crime Over Wine, veterinary care shouldn't be a mystery, which is why Emancipet is making vet care affordable and accessible to everyone. Emancipet is a nonprofit organization that operates an ever-expanding network of low-cost veterinary clinics in neighborhoods across the country, offering discounted and free vaccines, flea and tick treatments, spay and neuter surgeries, and much more. Learn more and support Emancipet's mission at emancipet.org.
Hello, Crime Over Wine listeners. I am Rachel.
And I'm Heather.
We are the hosts of Like Mother, Like Murder.
We bring you the good, the badass, and the crime.
Each week, we bring you stories from missing and murdered,
to survivors and women who empower you.
And of course, some mom talk sprinkled in.
Check us out wherever you get your podcasts at Like Mother, Like Murder.
And give us a follow on social media so that we can say hi.
Okay, love you, bye.
Okay, love you, bye.
Welcome back, and I have another update in that crazy carjacking and murder case in Florida. This one's not as complex, so I don't think you need your notepad and pencil this week. It is a little more straightforward. The investigation into the carjacking and murder of a Florida woman has become a, quote, all hands on deck situation, with federal agencies joining the case. The U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Florida says there are 9 agencies working this case, including the FBI and Homeland Security. Seminole County Sheriff Dennis Lemma says it became a federal case once the massive scope of the situation became clear, and this carjacking and murder are likely symptoms of a larger problem extending well past his jurisdiction. A witness captured the armed carjacking of Catherine Altagracia Guerra de Aguas Vivas on April 11th. Hours later, Catherine's vehicle was found burning with her body inside. She had been shot several times. 2 men face federal charges in the carjacking that led to Catherine's death. Jordanish Torres Garcia says he was the armed man who abducted Catherine, and he was paid $1,500 to deliver her to someone. Authorities say they aren't limiting the investigation to just the carjacking and Catherine's murder, and they aren't limiting suspects to those currently in custody.
So it sounds like they're really starting to kind of treat this as like some sort of like conspiracy like ring, like an organized like group. And I wonder if like there's possibly other like homicides or murders that are tied to all of this.
I think that is definitely a potential, because we talked about last week, the man who is reportedly the last person to speak to Catherine is a well-known person involved in drug trafficking things, and he's turned himself in the past week for drug-related charges. He's not currently charged with anything in Catherine's case, but he was likely the last person to speak to her before she died, and police still don't know why. That was the last contact she made. But that guy alone, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he's considered a person of interest in other homicides too. So I do think that that's definitely a thing here, and something the sheriff commented this week was, we really want to make sure that anyone who played a role in this anywhere, it is taken into custody here.
Wow. And I know that we've said this the last couple of weeks, but just how fast this case has moved is astonishing, because that just does not happen. When it comes to crime and real investigations, it takes time. The wheels of justice are not fast. So the fact that this has gone up the chain as fast as it has is crazy.
Yes, and I think that might be coming to an end here with 9 agencies now involved. So that's your local sheriff's office, state investigators, and several federal agencies. The DEA is also involved. U.S. Postal Service is involved. So when the feds get involved, the lips get tight.
Well, kudos to them, though. And we've said it before, kudos to the person that watched all of that unfold and pulled out their phone and started recording, because that really is the reason, well, not the reason, but a big reason as to why this has been treated the way that it has.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know that this person that, like that witness, there's actually 2 of them in that vehicle. There's one who called 911 and one who recorded it. I know that they're probably shook still, like to the core. I would be traumatized, and honestly probably wouldn't want to be identified now that I'm saying this, like, and it's processing. But God, I hope they do a sit-down interview at some point about how that all played out in that moment and what motivated them to take that action.
Yeah, and I mean, now that it's kind of unfolding that this is part of such a possibly larger, possibly organized group, you start to wonder about your own safety. So I would get not wanting my identity out there either. But man, it's been really interesting to watch the last couple of weeks and get the update.
Yeah, and we still have a lot of unanswered ones, but definitely still the family no longer cooperating, seems to still be an ongoing issue, as well as trying to figure out why her husband told her not to call 911 when she called him and told him what was going on, and who paid $1,500 to have her kidnapped and delivered, and what she delivered to them. So still a lot of big questions here, and hopefully we will get those answers. And now turning to a missing persons case, Haley Murphy hasn't been seen by her family since June 16th of 2023. That's when her sister dropped her off at a bar in Austin, Texas. Haley's sister tells NBC News she was supposed to go out of town that weekend, so they weren't concerned at first. However, they began to worry when texts stopped going through. Mother and sister tried to contact her on social media, and after no response, they reported her missing on June 20th. Haley's mother tells Dateline that her daughter served in the Army, and she was the one who originally noted Vanessa Guillen was missing in 2020. Haley was in the Army for about 3 years before being medically discharged. She's now a mother and had just started business school. Haley's described as a white woman with short blonde hair, hazel eyes, and multiple colorful tattoos. She's 5 foot and would be 23 years old today. If you have any information on Haley's whereabouts, contact the Texas Rangers at 512-424-2160.
A search is underway for a Los Angeles woman who is legally blind and deaf. Family members say Mynesha Demaria Vickers also has a neurological disorder. The 47-year-old was last seen on Thursday in the Carson area just after midnight. She has black braided hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a white t-shirt and multicolored yoga pants. Anyone with information should call the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Missing Persons Unit at 323-890-5500. So Heather, the Haley Murphy missing persons case, that brings up some questions because with her being originally connected to the Vanessa Guillen case, like, alarm bells go off. Could she have possibly lost her life because of the information that she knows in the Vanessa case?
Yeah, so obviously her being a missing person is the priority right now. But I feel like that's kind of burying the lead. Like, we're not saying that that's why she went missing, but she is missing, and this was also a part of her life. So part of her job in the Army was to check on the women in the barracks, and she noticed that Vanessa wasn't there, and then went to Vanessa's roommate and was like, have you seen her? And she's like, no. So that's when they reported her missing. And when she was medically discharged because she has hip issues. So the rest of her Army career didn't seem to be tainted because of that. It was a medical issue that had to be addressed. But yeah, I don't know if I believe in coincidences, because that would be one heck of a coincidence.
And Vanessa's case really brought to light a lot of the cover-ups and things that have gone on in the military. You know, a lot of people, their military careers were impacted by how that was handled. And, you know, just if you haven't watched any of the documentaries or done any of the reading out there, Vanessa's story changed a lot of things. And I think that there are some people out there that probably aren't happy. But again, not saying that that's connected to this, but it does make you wonder.
It does. And the morning before she went missing, she did tell her sister she was changing her phone number just because too many people had her number. So it's also kind of a weird timing there.
Definitely. So you may have noticed this week, we kind of have a little bit of a different format. We're just kind of trying some new things out, trying to find the best way to bring you these stories and to keep you interested and wanting to keep listening. So I know that we have some regular listeners here. If you are liking it, drop us a note or text us. Let us know. I know we have a lot of friends and family members that listen, and we appreciate it. And the wine, I already need like a refill, Heather, but we've been so busy. I haven't been able to get another glass, but I am liking this Zinfandel.
Oh, like I have sipped on mine, but I still have quite a bit. I'm apparently uncultured. So my dad was laughing at me as I came in here, and he's like, you have my scotch glass. So I filled up his scotch glass with wine. Yeah, I don't do those half glass. Like when you go to a restaurant and order wine, like, no, I fill it up. It's a full glass.
You commit to your wine.
But it's about half gone right now.
What you guys don't see is, like, what each week, like, what Heather drinks her wine out of, because it is, like, a different cup or glass every time, and sometimes she just drinks straight out of the bottle, which is why I love Heather so much, because she has no apologies and no regrets.
To say we've come so far, the first 3 episodes I drank straight from the bottle. Now I'm classy enough at least to use a cup of some kind.
A cup of some kind. I love. Well, thank you everyone for listening. And if you can't get enough of Crime Over Wine Weekly, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And Michelle and a special guest will actually see you next Monday for your next episode of Crime Over Wine Weekly, and I will be back.
Yes, we are giving Heather Mother's Day off, and I will be bringing you a very special edition of Crime Over Wine Weekly. It'll be a Mother's Day edition, so yeah, you'll definitely want to tune in next week.
Proud member of the Podnuga Network.